The Ralph Bivins Project. We're here with Bob Parsley, talking with him, chairman of Colliers Houston, one of the biggest commercial real estate organizations in this city, and he knows Houston. Been here quite a while, and a Houston native, I believe. So anyway, he has a lot of insights, and here we are at the first of the year, Bob. When we're just wondering, where are we going? What's the year ahead going to look like? You feel good about it, okay about it, or bad?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to be on your show.
My pleasure.
As you and I've talked about, we've both of us been around a long time, and I've always admired everything you've done, and so it's a lot of fun for me to have a chance to spend a little time with you on this podcast. I think the short answer is, we're feeling very positive as we go into 2026. 2025 was actually a very good year for Houston in the office market. We saw our first positive net absorption since 2019, which is, I think, a reflection of a lot of the activity in the market in 2025. And we think 2026 is going to continue to see growth. We see it as more of a managed growth. We don't see any expansion, any huge expansions, although, as you know, it was just announced last week that Devon and Coterra are merging, and Devon is going to be relocating over a period of time their offices and their people to the Houston. So that's a big announcement.
Oh, yeah.
I actually had conversations with the folks over at Metro National. That's where Coterra currently offices, over at 840 Gessner. Has about 150,000 feet in that building. And, the expectation or the hope, I know, from the folks at Metro National, is that they're going to be able to work with Devon and keep both that new merged entity in the Memorial City area. And I will just say from my own experience, I've had great success, and it's been great working with the folks at Metro National. And so I think that they stand a very good chance of whatever happens. And this could possibly be, and one of the questions you and I've talked about before is, do we expect any new buildings in the Houston market? And I think, our feeling has been that any new buildings, particularly given the cost of construction today, new buildings will be driven only if a developer has a tenant in hand. And this would be a classic case of that.
Yeah. That's Devon's got that's a pretty solid anchor tenant. And I don't know. I think that the Coterra building you're talking about at Metro National now is down there and kind of like right across from the mall. I think they tore down the Sears, and
that's correct.
Kind of down in where that Sears used to be in the mall on that side. And so it's 150,000 or they have now in that building. But we're thinking, well, Devon says they're going to move their CEO, and figure that the whole C-suite's going to come and all their people, and so you're wondering, the people in Oklahoma City are freaking out. That's a big loss for them. And
that's right. They have both Devon, which is, if you've been to Oklahoma City and seen their building that sits over the skyline, it's about, I don't know how tall it is, 50 stories, but if they empty that out, it's going to be a sore spot. And of course, combined with the other announcement last week that Expand Energy, which is the former Chesapeake, is their
Clinton,
their C-suite, their folks, they're going to keep a presence in Oklahoma City, but they're going to move their C-suite folks over to the, they had merged with Southwestern Energy up there just south of the Woodlands a couple of years ago. So they're again going to establish their business, their corporate offices here in Houston.
Do you reckon they'll go to the former Spring Woods Village, now called City Place? So that's
yes, I do, and I don't. My sense of it, I may be wrong, but my sense of it is that they're moving their corporate, their C-suite leaders here, but they're still planning on keeping up, a number of their folks in Oklahoma City. So the announcement's a little bit different than I think the Coterra Devon merger.
Mm-hmm. Let's hey, but for Oklahoma City, man, the two back-to-back whammo, man. That's
exactly.
Yeah.
They get the city fathers out selling a new dream. They got some great office space there to be taken by someone.
That's a first-class building with the Devon Towers, developed by Hines, and I think it's Picard Chilton, some high-end architect, and
Well, and of course, and then I don't know if you've seen the Chesapeake or now Expand Energy corporate office. Their campus is. We've been up there a couple times. We work with Expand on selling some of their properties there, but it's like a college campus. It is gorgeous, and they've got everything. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
That's good. Yeah,
I know we're more interested in Houston.
Hey, that City Place, if you count, Expand and all that's going. And of course, the Exxon headquarters is right there too. That's they got a lot. They're in good shape, man.
Well, and we can. One of the trends, Ralph, that I have seen post COVID has been, if you look at where the office leasing and the activity has occurred, most of the absorption has been in the suburban markets. And last year the West Loop area, the submarket, really led Houston in terms of net absorption. But that combined with what we used to refer to as the energy corridor, the area there around Memorial City, that has been one of the hottest submarkets. After the oil crash of 2014, when all those buildings out there west of Beltway 8, they were all coming online and they're all empty. And now it's hard to find any full floor spaces out there. Mm-hmm. And I've, in talking to a lot of our clients, one of the things that I think that you were seeing companies do somewhat grudgingly, but they're doing it, is that now that they're going out and telling all their workers it's time to come back to the office. A lot of them said, I like working at home. And so, in order to entice these folks back to the office, the companies are moving to where the workers live. So you're seeing, I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing so much activity in the West, Houston markets, because that's where people live. And, if you say to a worker, you can come to work in the West Houston area, it takes you 15 minutes to get there as opposed to an hour and 15 minutes downtown, you have a much better chance of attracting your workforce back to your office.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. One of the things, the other thing that I've heard, and from some of your people, maybe Danny Rice said this the other day. It's like 2015, 10 years old, building's 10 years old and less. When you get to a building that's over 10 years old, it's hard to be competitive for those buildings. It's hard for them to get tenants and to be on the A list and everything. Is that you kind of, how do you feel about that, Mark?
Mark? I think that is a reality. We talk about when you talk about 2015, but but think about the buildings that have, in the downtown market, you have, the Texas Tower, you have 609 Main, you have 811 Main, Bank of America Tower, the new Norton Rose Fulbright building. All of those buildings were built 2015 on.
Yeah.
And all of those buildings have occupancy rates in excess of 90%. Now, Norton Rose, it's still in the lease up phase, it's about 70%, but it's going to get there.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, and I've had personal experience with it with some of our clients, that the clients are looking for they're looking for buildings that are more efficient. They're looking for buildings that have a higher image. And, they're willing to pay rental rates far greater than what the other Class A office properties are that were, many of them, as you and I know, were built in that boom time during the 80s. But we're seeing
else where everybody was going like nuts,
you just went down Louisiana and then over to from Allen Center, all the buildings, all the way down the Hines buildings, Bank of America, the old Bank of America, the Pennzoil building, One Shell Plaza, Two Shell Plaza, Wells Fargo Plaza. All those buildings were built back in the 80s, and they're great buildings, but they are much more inefficient. They have larger core space. You'll never see buildings built, in my opinion, that tall again because of just all the elevator requirements. Creates more core space. But I'm saying, large investment companies, law firms, companies that are image conscious, moving into these newer buildings. I had one of our clients, which is law firm clients, told me, he said, Bob, we're competing for attorneys with all these other firms. We have to be in a building that tells people we're a global real estate or a global law firm, and it's and that's what's driving a lot of these newer buildings. So when you ask the question, will we see a new building coming up? I definitely think we're going to see new buildings. I don't know about this year, but the buildings that when we see new buildings, they're going to come. They're going to be I'll be very surprised if we see new spec office buildings.
No spec.
Cost is so expensive today. Rental rates, even out in the Katy freeway area, where Metro National and some of those great developers are out there. I mean, rental rates are in the 40s up to $50 net range. I mean, who would have ever thought that?
Yeah.
It's amazing. And that compared to, when I look downtown, we just completed several transactions down there. Rental rates are still for call them older Class A buildings, the Class A building, in the mid 20s net range versus these newer buildings you're referring to, what they sometimes call in the market today, these AA buildings, as opposed to just A, but these newer buildings, I mean, rental rates are, for the most part, all north of 40 net rates we're talking about now, not including operating expenses. So people are willing to pay for that, that efficiency as well as that image they get from the newer buildings.
And law firm, I don't know, but I do know that, the new Hines building, that 800 Texas, 845 Texas, I think. Texas Tower, yeah. That's but there's some law firms. They got a ton of law firms in that. A ton of law firms.
Vincent and Elkins, McGuire Woods, are just two of the many. I mean, you're exactly right. But I'll tell you, just kind of pivoting a minute from downtown. When we talked about, when Oxy bought Marathon, and the Marathon building that was built out there at 990 Town and Country that Metro National just acquired from, that when they moved all their people out of that building, that created a negative net absorption in that submarket in the fourth quarter of over 500,000 feet. You know, that building now is 100, almost, if it's not 100, it's above 95% leased up
Already.
already.
That was a quick.
At rental rates, Ralph, at rental rates close to $50 a foot net.
That building was built it's less than 5 years ago. It was finished. It
is a beautiful building. It's a beautiful building. I will say that. I've been through it a couple times, and it is spectacular. But the idea that you're seeing those kind of rates out in the suburban markets, I think is more of a reflection of what we just talked about. That you're seeing a move. You know, think about it. I mean, when we see Lyondale Basel move from downtown to Williams Tower. And then we've seen a lot of these energy companies that were in the West Loop area moving out west. I mean, like Marathon, like, you know, Occidental, like, you know, I mean, a lot of these bigger energy companies and companies like we're talking about, like Devon, moving from other cities. So Houston continues to be the center of the universe for the energy world.
Oh, wow. That's something else. So, but okay, the buildings that are older, you know, built in that early '80s boom time, what happens to them? There's a ton of them, and you know the B minuses, and of course the C's, and all that. And I don't know. Your research people probably know. At one time, you know, somebody said something like, "There's over 100 totally vacant buildings around town." It may be more than that. I'm not sure. But what happens to this supply that nobody wants anymore? They want to be able to encourage, you know, their employees to come back to work. So what happens to all these old buildings now? What's the future for them?
Well, I think you really have to divide. Your question really needs to be answered in two separate ways. One, the buildings that were built in the '80s, these Class A buildings, these buildings that are all, there's some great architectural design buildings there. They're older, and they're trying to compete, as we just talked about, with these newer, call them AA buildings that were built after 2015. And so you've seen, whether it's Houston Center, whether it's Allen Center, whether it's all the buildings, you see what One Shell Plaza is doing right now. Owners are having to put in millions of dollars to upgrade those buildings to be competitive, and they're spending the money to do it. The vacancy rate though in those Class A buildings downtown, setting aside these brand new buildings we just talked about, are still, you know, in the 27% vacancy range. And so, you know, there's got to be a move afoot. I mean, and some of the movements you're seeing, which I'm not happy about as a citizen, a resident of Houston, is that companies just moving within buildings. And so there's got to be a bigger, more concerted effort on the part of our city fathers and the Greater Houston Partnership to continue to attract businesses into Houston to fill those buildings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we missed an opportunity in running light rail from the downtown market to the airports, in my opinion, or it's out, and so that is it's not helpful compared to other cities. But I mean, so those kind of buildings will continue to be competitive, you know, at a lower price point than the brand new buildings, because they're not having to, you know, the cost of building those buildings from the '80s is much less than they are now. But in terms of the second part of your question about what happens with the B minuses and C's, and you know, you and I go drive around Houston, we can see them all over. They're older buildings, and for the most part, a lot of them are just functionally obsolescent. Now, we look when I deal with some of my partners up in New York, for example, they're taking some of these older buildings and converting them into residential, uh, apartments, condominiums. We really haven't seen. We've seen, I think, one incident of that in Houston, but some of those older buildings, as you know, have been converted, believe it or not, into hotels. A lot of the hotels downtown, and that's been a good thing. The old Texaco building turned into a hotel, and a lot of the other along Rusk and Texas Avenue that were these older hotels and hotel developers or older office buildings, and hotel developers have gone in and refurbished them and been able to create usable buildings there. But a lot of those buildings are just, I'm not going to say they're going to be torn down, but a lot of them probably will and become parking lots or potentially, I guess, the locations for newer buildings. I'm just not sure what that future looks like.
Yeah, but I was trying to think long term. What happened? What's it going to look like in 2030, 2040? It's something they can't. They won't just sit there forever and ever, like the relics.
Well,
over there.
we got the big project that they were just been talking about this week about the redevelopment and the expansion of the George R. Brown Convention Center.
Yeah,
and so that's a big deal, and it's it's going to help us attract more larger and more convention business to the city. And what does that do? That really helps with our hotel occupancy. It doesn't really do anything for office space, in my opinion. What it does do is it hopefully, with the things that we're doing, I know I saw in the paper today that they announced that they're going to redo Tranquility Park, which has just been a horrible, it's just kind of horribly run down. But all of this, of course, in looking forward to the World Cup in the summer. But the more effort we put into improving, our green space or our public spaces downtown. I know there's the effort to close off part of Main Street, make it walkable. That's a great idea. And I think that they have the Lynn Wyatt Park that they created that. So there's efforts being made to create better spaces for people to live downtown, and two, to try to make it attractive to companies. I mean, Chevron's downtown. They've got a big presence downtown, which is great. I'm glad they've stayed here and seemingly are growing their businesses here, their business here. So we've got to continue as a city to attract those type of businesses that lend itself toward being in the downtown market. But I think it will continue to be competitive with opportunities in the suburban markets.
Oh, but did want to ask you, suburban markets. Look, just recently we heard, our football NFL team, the Houston Texans, are building and bought some, 80 acres or something out in Bridgeland, Northwest. It's barely in Harris County, but it's in Harris County, about 35 miles from the stadium where they play. And it's kind of mixed use development practice and headquarters. Tell me what you think about that and the impact of that.
Well, I think that the Texans ownership looked around and saw what Jerry Jones did up in Frisco, Texas, and I'm not sure what type of partnership that the Texans have made with Howard Hughes in terms of that property, whether they were able to acquire it or as long-term ground lease, which is what Howard Hughes has been doing in the Bridgeland area. But what I do believe is going to happen is you're going to see that's going to be a driver, one of the drivers of continued development in the Bridgeland market. And Howard Hughes has done a very good job of what they've done so far in terms of their planning. Got the big high school up there. They've got now the Bridgeland Central area. They just or completing that first timber building up there, and some retail. But and it's one of the fastest growing single family residential areas. But with this as a, hopefully it's the what the Texans are doing will drive continued activity. I think what you see with just stadiums like we have, with our new Daikin Field and also with NRG, around it, it typically has not been a lot of commercial and residential development. I know that, they're trying to do more of that now around the baseball stadium. Jim Crane's doing that and cleared that land and is going to build a new hotel and some other, commercial development there, similar to what that he's seen in Atlanta, where they built that around that baseball stadium and
report, whatever it is.
So people they can have great dreams and the financial resources to create an environment around their stadium, and I assume that's what we're going to see. It's going to be a long. It's not going to happen overnight out in Bridgeland with what the Texans are doing, but on a long-term basis, it could be a very successful development. I honestly don't believe that you're going to see the football stadium move out to out to Bridgeland, but
this is practice facilities, office
facilities, and
hotels and stuff.
Similar to what they did in Dallas. Very similar to what they did. They have Cowboy Stadium, a very different location than all the practice areas and everything that has been created up in Frisco.
But that is, I don't know why they couldn't do it a little bit closer to town, but Bridgeland's a pretty good place to get started. And I do recall, Chevron owns like 75 acres up there in the bridge.
And they still have, and this property is directly adjacent to that.
Is it? Yeah.
That's correct.
That could be something. I've wondered, we got the Chevron, 2 buildings downtown there, like 1,500 Louisiana and Smith Street. And then the big vacant lot there. 1,600.
What Chevron's doing up in the Bridgeland is more of a research and development offices. It's not their corporate offices. When they bought that land, there was a lot of speculation, I think, in the real estate community that they were going to move out to Bridgeland, but it appears that they're going to keep their corporate presence in the central business district and use the property up in Bridgeland for their research and development activities. So we'll see.
I've long wondered. I believe I got my history right. That was right next to the existing Chevron building. Now this St. Augustine grass, probably an acre and a half or more. That wasn't that the YMCA site a long time ago, and that's right. Yeah, but that's waiting for some. If it's that, we want a new corporate headquarters. It's that site's waiting for it right there.
It's again, I think it takes some big corporate presence with to really to attract other businesses. I mean, they got to. It's like anything. I mean, whether it's being in the commercial office space, whether it be in biosciences, whatever else. If you get a big company that is a linchpin, or it's like the reef. A lot of companies are attracted toward that business. That's how you grow an area of a business area.
Well, we keep going, I guess.
What,
Bob? Hey, really enjoyed talking to you. Really did. It's good to catch up, and
Well, I always enjoy our conversations, And, you know, I know that I'll never be able to play a game with you about challenging you on where companies are located, because you know every one of them. And then if I ask about old history, you know, I remember as a young boy, I used to take the bus downtown and go to the Majestic and Metropolitan and Lowe's theaters. My dad was an attorney in a building downtown, and the idea of a 10 or 12-year-old boy taking a bus downtown with his buddies today, I'd like, it never happened.
Yeah,
But
let's go downtown and see Goldfinger or something, you know.
Well, that would go to the movies, go to Oshman's, the sporting goods store, and go to James Coney Island. And then I think, I mean, I never told my dad this, but we used to go down to Howard's Fun Shop to get all the little things we bring home to cause trouble at the house. All of those are gone.
Yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff. Stelzig's Boot Company was down there, you know.
Exactly.
People go there, and that's where they get your boots and stuff.
Well, you know, you're going to have to take this part of the podcast and just send it over to all the retirement homes, because they're the only ones that remember what we talk about.
Oh, they said, "Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember."
You're going to have to follow me up with some young guy and ask him these questions, and his eyes are like, I don't know about those places.
James Coney Island. Yeah, that was a great deal. You get, 2 hot dogs and for. All right, my friend. Great talking to you.
Ralph, it's great to talk to you, and thank you for the opportunity.